Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, I got a returning guest, probably one of the more, probably has like the top three guests that we've had on the show, numbers was. Have been having him on for the last few years. We got William Ramsey on, but before we introduce him, we'll introduce the other rejects on the show. And we got with us today, we got Brooke. What is going on, Brooke? How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on. Great to meet you, William. I have been a fan for quite a while. I love your work with SFK. So, really excited for the topic tonight. You can find me wherever you get your podcast at Dark Florida Podcast and on Instagram at Dark Florida Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us as well. And we got my man, the Headless Giant. What is going on, sir?
How you doing, Nick? It's great to be here with William Ramsey. Whenever we get him on there, sparks just start flying. So you can find me on Twitter and on YouTube, Headless Giant, also on Instagram. And if you have any stories of the occult / paranormal nature, you can send them to my show, the Headless Giant Podcast at gmail.com. And Nick will send you a free sticker pack if you do. So go ahead and include your address there, and we will get some sticker packs out to you. And I read those every Thursday. And every Sunday, I've got the Trilogues with Ethan. I just fell asleep this one. Next time we'll get it.
Last night, too. Yeah, funny. It happens. It happens to the best of us, man. All right. My man, Ethan, what is going on, sir? How are you?
Well, sleep is the best meditation. Meditation is the best sleep, or something like that. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful to be here with everyone. William, this is going to be great. I appreciate your research and insights, and yeah, honored to be here with everyone. I'm easy to find on social media and even have a few books on the old Global.com. So salute to everybody.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And we got Tyrone. What is going on, sir?
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to hear this, what's going to be shared today. Everything you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. And best-selling book is on Journey Through the Origins of History is on Amazon.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much, Tyrone. Always appreciate you jumping on. And finally, William, for the people who don't know who you are right now, let them know what's up. Where can they find all your amazing work?
My podcast is in the top 0.5 podcasts in the world. You can find all my work at William Ramsey Investigates. There, also my website. You can buy five books and then 5 documentaries on Patreon. You can check that out. I post a lot of stuff there that isn't censored. Other things that might get me in trouble elsewhere is on my Patreon these days. So check it out.
Awesome. Nice. And you're in the 0.5. We're in the 0.1. So we're coming.
Wow.
No, I mean 1%. You're in 0.5. So
that's legit, though.
Yeah, we're coming for you.
Top 40,000 podcasts. That's cool.
Congrats. No, thank you. Appreciate it. So the Manchurian Candidate. I guess what got you interested in covering this, or in the way that you're doing it now?
Really current events. Like I was looking into a lot of these more recent killers. People would know. People who tried to kill Trump, supposedly. Crooks, Ruth. Then there's these strange events that happened on January 1st, which is Jabbar, who rolled over a lot of people, and Levelsberger, who went to the Great Golden Monolith in Trump Tower, I should say, the golden monolith of the Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and supposedly blew up his e-truck or his Tesla truck. And those were both very strange, and the timing was odd. And both of those guys are traced back to Fort Bragg. And then Luigi Mangione. So these are kind of strange characters, but they're strange in a way that rhymes with other people. And I'd done a study in The Catcher in the Rye, and
that is so weird in itself. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's another show. But I mean, that book is weird, and it's connected to Chapman and Hinckley, 2 guys. One guy who supposedly killed Lennon, and the other guy tried to kill Reagan, 4 months apart from each other.
So I think when you were on the show, when you were covering that, I think I ran the gematria and it actually matched somebody's name that you were even talking about. Like Catcher in the Rye matches someone's name in gematria that's associated with even having the book. It's like, what the fuck? How does that happen?
It's a strange book. I think it's kind of like a dark book. Like there's nothing redeeming about the main character. People said he's an anti-hero or all this. I see him as a very fractured, dissociative kind of psychopathic sociopath, like so many bad things about Holden Caulfield, and weird kind of syncs between him and Chapman being in it. The end of Catcher in the Rye happens at a carousel, which I found out later. Carousels and attics are like big mind control things for some strange reason. You'll see them repeated in these characters, but it ends up in Central Park. That's kind of like where Chapman was. He used to hang out in Central Park. And then Luigi Mangione supposedly killed that head of the CEO, corrupt CEO of the healthcare industry, and went into Central Park. And then there's strange syncs with this movie Manchurian Candidate, where the main character, he doesn't realize, but the Sinatra character realizes that this guy's under mind control after he walks away from a bar and jumps in the pond in Central Park. So it's all very strange. And I think it's because New York was kind of like the navel of the earth after World War II, in the sense it was kind of a bustling city and the financial capital of the U.S. But so that's kind of what led me back to Manchurian Candidate, is this kind of interest in these killers. So that's kind of, and then I watched the movie again. I'd seen it before. And then I looked into the history and I went, wow, this is really, really important. I can see why it was taken out of distribution for 25 years. Nobody saw the movie after the JFK assassination, and it wasn't until its re-release in 97 and 98. So the film itself has a very interesting background. Just actually the history of the film.
That is interesting though, how like I think like you, me, and other people have even been noticing, especially with gematria, repeating themes that are matching like now from in the past. Like all of a sudden, like Back to the Future seems popular because people in gematria are covering it and it's matching stuff that's kind of relative now. There was a lot of things I've even covered in the past with certain topics that were heavy with gematria, and it was always matching stuff that was like literally popular right at the moment. And you almost like, like, is this like some repeating like cipher that pops up? It's just very weird, and it seems to be happening more and more often.
Well, it's interesting you're bringing up numerology, Nick, because I have a section of this film. I read the book and seen the film many, many times, but there's like what people call occult numerology or Illuminati numerology, whatever they use to term it. But Condon knew it. So if you can bring up that film, we can go through some of the selections of it, and then maybe this will point it. This is a total spoiler alert. I'm going to ruin the film for everybody, but the whole arc of the film is that the Manchurian Candidate is the fact that Raymond Shaw, the main character, is in the Korean War from 1950 to 1953. And he gets abducted by people from the Communist Front, hypnotized, sent back, and then he's handled all the way to the United States, where he becomes an assassin. And then he tries to kill the presidential contender at the selection of the presidential nomination, at the nomination, kind of like where RFK was when he was at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. But the Condon knows it's very dark. The film has the book has stone cold incest. The lead character woman, who's a villain, is willingly seems to be having sex with her dad. So it gets pretty dark. But actually,
this remake of an old Egyptian story.
Condon is very well read. He understood a lot of classical allusions and a lot of classical stuff, and he also knew this occult stuff. So this troop that gets abducted, there's 11 of them. So there's 11 men in this whole thing. 22 men carried 11 people, and then they're getting hypnotized or induced, and there's minds of 11 Americans. So this is the number of magic, and I think that Condon is implying that this hypnotization or creation of an assassin is a magical act. Reports at 11 o'clock, so he gets up at 11, he goes to bed at 11. There's literally a 9/11 in this. So like 911 names were stricken from the list. There's 77s in here, so probably know the number 77. But you can just see this is actual text from the book itself. At a critical moment in this film, Sinatra, who plays this guy Marco, he realizes that he's been hypnotized, and at the critical moment of when he's having his dream, it happens at 3:11 at night. Like, these aren't accidents. So,
one of the ways that they make themselves clear as to who's been hypnotized and who's not is the same repeating phrases that they use over and over and over again. Like this guy was the most what did they call him? They called him like he was the best man out there. He was, and they would say it over and over again to where that's how you knew that these other people were under mind control. And we see that happening so often. Like we've got these repeating phrases, this psychic driving that they try and use over and over again in our society, safe and effective, all the rest of this stuff. It's like these don't mean anything, but they're going to push you forward in that direction. That's one of the main tells, I think, that you could see the mind control in effect is the driving phrases.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
When I ran a lot of the gematria, just real quick, when I was talking about my experiences with seeing like stuff repeating, a lot of the stuff that matched too was words or phrases that was constantly being said in the news. Mar-a-Lago or a certain MAGA phrase. And it's just like, yo, is that like an energetic egregore you're trying to grow? It's really weird.
I think it's all intentional and all comes out of this post-war research about behavioral science, psychology, and MK Ultra, all the stuff together. Brain warfare. But yeah, we're kind of, I think this is like the start of where it comes into fiction and then comes into fact. So actually, what's really interesting of this book, about this book and movie, is that how much Condon knew at the time and how much he integrated into this, how sophisticated he was. Because a lot of the techniques they show in this film are real life techniques, NLP, repetitive phrasing, all kinds of post-hypnotic suggestion, which is real. A lot of people don't know that these techniques exist, but they've actually been studied at a very, very high level by very intelligent people, like super brains. Like Ewan Cameron is like a nightmare guy out of McGill who did the sleep room, but he was the head of the World Psychiatric Forum. The guy was really smart, and he had an external. He was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He had an external front that he was a healer and a good guy, and he was doing the most horrific experiments. They can't even be called experiments. He was using techniques on people over long periods of time, and he never went to jail for it. And he was poisoning and messing with their brains, and they didn't know it. Their families thought they were going in for treatment, and he made them worse. So these things are all tested and true, and they're actually in this film. Yeah, it's really something else. So let's listen to this. See if you guys can get the audio from this.
Jealously guards
Can you hear that?
award
Yep.
Can you hear that?
for
Yeah.
valor, the Congressional Medal of Honor. In the Korean War, with 5,720,000 personnel engaged, only 77 men were so honored.
So there's your 77. This is right at the beginning of the film.
When I get married to my old lady, I got no idea that this guy comes.
This is a sequence right where he realizes he doesn't, but Sinatra realizes this guy's been tampered with. And the key thing and the key motif and the key trigger that you'll see through this film is the Queen of Diamonds. So watch this, but listen for the 11 in the background.
In the same package, that it's a package deal, and for 11 long years, I got this crumb tied around my neck. And believe me, it's no bargain. You've got no idea what kind of a problem I got with this guy.
Sorry I'm late, kid. Got held up in traffic, you know.
Again. So I says to him, please do me a favor, will you? Why don't you go and take yourself a cab and go up to Central Park and go jump in the lake?
Raymond, I don't know why you're...
So that is it. So they tie in this kind of mind control suggestibility to the number 11 there in the background. It's not a mistake. These are all very intentional. And then this is Angela Lansbury. One of her first films was Gaslight. That's why we use the word gaslight now as a reference to a movie she was in, when somebody's just stone cold lying to your face. But according to certain things, she's like one of the top 25 villains in American film history. And by the way, AFI ranked this film as one of the top 100 films back in 1990. So top 100 American films ever made. That's like nobody's really seen it. They've seen the remake with Denzel Washington. Watch this.
The only apartment in New York City without an air conditioner. You know, sometimes I think you came to us for another century. Chu Chin Chow, or whatever your name is. The steaks are to be broiled for exactly 11 minutes, no more, no less, on each side in a preheated grill at 400 degrees.
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody grills their steaks for 11 minutes. I don't know if that's really true, but anyway, when you're talking about numerology, Nick, this whole thing kind of
yeah, for sure.
But it pervades the book and the film.
Right. It's the idea of the 11 as being the symbol of mastery. It's like past the 10. And so what they're doing is they're saying we're operating on a level higher than you by 10. You're down here at 1, we're up here at 11. It's that kind of thing. It's, well, at least it seems that way from like the context, right? So a lot of other people could use 11 as a form of mastery that's not connected to mind control, but obviously in a mind control film, they're sort of throwing it in your face, you know?
Right. It's Crowley's master number, the number of magic, the number of the microcosm and macrocosm, 5 and a 6 coming together, the number of the magician, number of the New World Order. It's all there. So anyway, that's just an interesting thing. So that's one element of this whole thing. One of the other interesting things about this film, it really was okayed by JFK himself. That's what a lot of people don't know, is that this film was made because JFK wanted to get it done. And Sinatra was his close friend. They were close personal friends. It wasn't like Sammy Davis Jr. said that Sinatra had like a direct dial to the White House. You could just pick up the phone and call JFK whenever he wanted. And they were together at Hyannisport. And JFK, we know, was like he liked to read spy novels. He liked to read James Bond novels and all that. Ian Fleming. He read this and said, "Get it made." And he actually knew a guy from the Democratic Party in Los Angeles, and that he got it greenlit, financed for $2.2 million, and got all these great actors. Angela Lansbury. Vivian Lee is like Hollywood royalty. That's Jamie Lee Curtis's mom. She's in this. And of course, Sinatra is like, world famous singer. Not really a great actor in my opinion, but I think the movie's great.
Was there anything anybody wanted to ask?
Yeah. So there's so much about this movie that really has parallels in our everyday lives. Like what exactly do you see, exposing the kind of Manchurian candidate society that we have today from the, examples in this movie?
A lot. The training, the background, the knowledge that goes in, the handling. A lot of these guys have handlers. So they're not working independently. They may be seen as kind of lone nuts or portrayed as lone nuts, and Oswald was portrayed. So it's always this lone nut motif. But if you look behind the curtain, they all have these friends. Oswald had like 10 handlers. And in this movie, it's a really good question, by the way. In this movie, the kind of assassin who's played by Lawrence Harvey, his character is Raymond Shaw. He's handled by the communists, and then he's handed over to his mother. His mother's his handler, and she's hitting him with the hypnotic suggestions and stuff like that. And if you follow, and it's interesting, the timing of this is really something else, because Lee Harvey Oswald's main handler at the very end was a woman by the name of Ruth Paine, Paine, and she just passed away last week at 92. And she took to her grave some incredible secrets. But she was the one who got him the job at the book depository. But Oswald had strange handlers almost all of his life. And he actually imitates Raymond Shaw's character, who is controlled by these communist bloc characters, and then comes back for an assassination here. Whereas Oswald went to Soviet Union for 18 months, and then came back here and directly committed assassination within a year. It's incredible. And then he sheep dipped, right? He has a legend. He has an intel legend that he's a communist sympathizer, but it's all fake. It's all public. Like, he goes on TV. He's seen handing out flyers for Fair Play for Cuba, but he also has like weird handlers who are right wing. Paine is a fake leftist. He also is under the aegis of this guy de Mohrenschildt, who is a white Russian with very strange connections, a very strange guy. He also is covered by David Ferry, a known, I don't know what you call it. He liked teen boys. Is he a pederast or a pedophile or something? But his thing was he liked teen boys. He was gay, and that's a no-no he was openly gay in the Catholic Church at that time, so he got kicked out. But he was also a known hypnotist. He was an expert hypnotist. And he knew how to do post-hypnotic suggestion. And when they found his room, he was dead in 67. He had books on hypnotism everywhere. He was a polymath. The guy was really smart. He knew how to fly commercial airliners. He was a gun runner, CIA agent. He was Jim Garrison, who did the prosecution of Clay Shaw, said that David Ferrie was one of the most important people who ever lived. Like, he really appreciated Ferrie as this handler of Lee Harvey Oswald, somebody involved in the assassination, and somebody involved in trying to kill Castro, a devout anti-communist. It's the strangest story. So I mean, the whole show could be comparisons between this movie and real life, but that's just one example. And what's shocking about that example is it comes right after this movie's made. So Oswald emulates this Raymond Shaw character all the way to the end.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned that,
he says he's a patsy.
Yeah, it was like, yo, I know, and another weird thing with Oswald, he has, I don't know if it's the lady from the books depository or whatever the place was, or if it's one of her friends, but like, he knew a lady that was involved with the Council of Nine as well.
He knew a lady who was what?
Part of the Council of Nine.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember the dude's name.
I think Payne was associated with that because her brother was some kind of bigwig, and they knew the Council of Nine. But get this gets even more interesting about Oswald. Payne's one of her best friends, somebody she traveled to Europe with like 30 years before. Her name was Bancroft, and she was one of her longtime best friends for years, decades. Bancroft was in Europe. She could speak multiple languages. Guess who she gets a job with during World War II? Alan Dulles. So she's literally working with Alan Dulles in Switzerland. This is left out of all the histories.
That's like MK Ultra right there, right?
We're getting there, dude. That's the whole thing, is that she's friends with Dulles before MK Ultra starts.
Fuck.
So then she's like a lover and friend of Dulles and Dulles' wife, Bancroft, friends with Payne. And then Dulles gets done with World War II, becomes the head of the CIA, does the brain warfare speech in 53, and then a week later, MK Ultra starts up. And so and this is the thing that's left out of the JFK assassination, is that Lee Harvey Oswald is Raymond Shaw. He's like Raymond Shaw. He's being handled. He does weird stuff. He has money. He's able to travel around like Raymond Shaw or Luigi Mangione or Ruth without nobody knows where his funds come from. How did he get to Europe and back? How's he coming out? He was at Tsugi.
Yeah.
Get this. Okay, so maybe you guys know the story of Olson, who got chucked out of a window. He was one of the early researchers. And they say he jumped out and went crazy. I don't buy that story. I think he was actually he was a good guy, and they chucked him out a window because Forrestal did the same thing. He got chucked out of a window in the 50s, and this is from the CIA handbook too. This is what you do because it breaks up it's like an SFK killing. It's like
weren't they like dosing Frank or something? They were dosing him without him knowing, and he started spazzing out.
The LSD stuff is before 53s, but they were doing it. So he was involved. This story is unbelievable. So he dies. There's like some of the documents not pertaining to MK Ultra came out, and one of the documents said, "Guys, you've got to stop using LSD in certain places." And one of the places where Dulles wrote on this thing is stop doing LSD experiments at Atsugi Air Force Base, which is where Oswald would be stationed 4 years later. So they were doing LSD experiments Atsugi is basically Tokyo. It's like a suburb of Tokyo in Japan. And there's like traces, like they could trace freaking the poisoner in chief, Sidney Gottlieb, to there.
Oh, God.
And so like if you watch this movie, like Raymond Shaw ends up in the hospital, and when Oswald is at Atsugi, he has a lot of money. He's going to high-end clubs. They don't know where the money's coming from. This is all verifiable fact. I'm not making this up. He also went to the hospital for certain stays, and the excuse for being in the hospital was venereal disease. So who goes to the hospital for venereal disease? Nobody. You just take some penicillin or whatever. So like even these are weird cover stories. If you get into like Chapman or Sirhan, they're in and out of hospitals all the time. They're always in hospitals. And Oswald was like that. He tried to kill himself supposedly at Atsugi, and back in the hospital. He's very troubled.
That's like MK Ultra being pushed on.
Right. Well, that's a good speculation because I think that he's under handlers for a long period of time. One of the big guys at the CIA is James Jesus Angleton. He never made it to the head of the CIA, but he was head of operations. And his story is very different. But there's a really good book called The Ghost by Jefferson Morley. And in that book, they talk about a 201 file, which is a specialty file for certain people who are on the radar. So Angleton's counterintelligence, right? So he's trying to forestall or fight off moles and people coming from the communist infiltration, supposedly. That's his cover. But he directly had Oswald's file from when he returned from Soviet Union to when he left, and he kept it to himself. He didn't share it to anybody in the CIA. So Angleton thought that Oswald was special. There's something about Oswald that was special. And one of the central components, and there's hypnotism involved in Jim Garrison's case, believe it or not. He tried to hypnotize the main character. If you remember JFK, Kevin Bacon plays the gay guy. That was one of Garrison's main character witnesses, because what Garrison was trying to do is connect Oswald to Ferry, to Clay Shaw, and to Bannister. This whole nexus of kind of right-wing guys, right? And one of the key things was seeing some people saw Shaw and Ferry with Oswald, trying to get Oswald a job at a state hospital. They're trying to get him to work at a hospital, just like Chapman worked at that hospital in Hawaii. And so this is a key component of that case. And what Garrison did is he hired a hypnotist to get the character, who had an Italian LaSalle or something like that, to like induce him to remember the stuff. It's really part of that case. So there's hypnotism in Ferry and in Garrison's investigation, believe it or not. But yeah, those are keys. And one of the other interesting things about Clay Shaw that a lot of people don't know is he was a war hero. He literally worked under a guy named General Thrasher, who was a general he was actually, if you remember Operation Overlord, that was the June 1944 invasion of France. It was called Overlord. And Thrasher and Shaw were like heavily involved in organizing that in southern England. And Shaw was an aide de camp, and he got awarded like Order of Merits, and he was a well-awarded guy. And externally, he was, Mary Sherman, good stuff. This is a side story to it. But Shaw was awarded, but he was also rumored to be a Knight of Malta, like Dulles. So Dulles and also this Knight of Malta is overlooked. So he's a perfect person to kind of oversee Oswald, who's probably being established as the patsy for a year before November 1963.
Well, I think the
world famous person. Oh, get this. Here's one more component that's really incredible. The new JFK documents came out this year, right? Luna, do you remember Luna from Florida? She dropped all these documents. There was some people. So Kerry Thornley, who we can get in, was a guy who knew Oswald before when he was in the Marines at Atsugi. He wrote a book about Oswald, the Idle Warriors. But there was somebody in Russia who met Oswald. Her name was Macmillan, and she wrote a book called Marina and Lee, and it's like a 400 or 500 page novel. It's just total story. It's supposedly a story about how he got radicalized and became a communist, right? With Marina in the Soviet Union. Well, these new documents came out, and she's getting paid by the CIA. Macmillan is there, so this is another handler. So she's there even before, and this is like 58 or 59. She's there with them, and back in the States they're together, and she writes this kind of so-called nonfiction book of note about Marina and Lee, and she's a CIA operative, dude. And it's just total pop, and it's in these documents that came out recently.
Right. I think there's this glaring link between the handler phenomenon and what we see every time the president is speaking on the airplane, right? On Air Force One. Every time there's that guy behind him. Doesn't matter if it's Trump, it doesn't matter if it's, any other president, you always see the handler standing right behind him on Air Force One to make sure that he's on message and delivering the exact phrases that have sort of been given to him. So it's like, where does the mind control start and where does it end? I think that's the real question that everybody has, you know?
It's interesting you say that. In one of my other presentations on this, the solitaire is a key component of the film. And there's a lot of writings on this film. It's like a lot of cineasts or critics like to comment about it. But there is a comment George Stephanopoulos was talking about. He worked under Clinton, right? He's a left-wing Democrat operative. He said that like people would write speeches, but what Bill Clinton would like to do in his downtime is sit around and play solitaire. So he knew Bill Clinton for like first rate. And then if you look at Bill Clinton's background and some stuff, he's not self-driven. There's something about him like he's been appointed, much like Obama, much like a lot of these guys. Have you seen the footage of them putting makeup on Bill Clinton? Absolutely.
They're in idle mode. He's just completely. There's nothing there. It's completely empty.
Completely empty.
Something I did want to mention, it wasn't my research, so I didn't want to say anything, but Lisa mentioned it, and we don't have to go into it, but I think it's just a weird thing how you see stuff repeating again, is that if we want to start looking at this guy being Oswald, Oswald did work in Russia with that lady, and he did work on SV-40, which was like they were going to try to put it in vaccines, I think, to knock Castro off, like as a weapon. And it was used in vaccines that possibly gave polio and killed them. And that same SV-40 was thrown into a vaccine just recently that was pumped out again. So it is kind of interesting how you even see the SV-40 popping up over again.
Nick, can you pull up this video of Clinton, please?
It's like a mannequin.
Yeah, that shit is creepy. I remember this video.
He's playing solitaire.
It's almost like he's on some seriously heavy drugs.
Yo, right?
Here's another one.
He on that really good LSD stuff right there.
They gave him those uppers they were giving Biden.
Here's the quote for this is from George Stephanopoulos. If you can bring that up, it says Clinton played solitaire. So it says, when Nixon needed to think, he picked up a legal pad and wrote outlines. Reagan composed letters. Clinton played solitaire. And that's like the key phrase that they had for Raymond. Raymond, why don't you pass the time by playing a little solitaire?
Right. It almost reinforces the methodologies because you don't know what's going on in their subconscious mind when they're seeing these cards. Each one could be very symbolic of reinforcing these different hypnotic suggestions that are now coming into their psyche and sort of reinforcing the plan, you know?
Exactly. You don't know who's been tampered with. That's the scary thing about like hypnosis and some of these techniques. They refine the techniques over time, which is really bad.
Well, they have people that hypnotize you to admit to shit you didn't even do. Make up stories.
All kinds of stuff. And a lot of these guys, they have selective amnesia, and they mention this in the movie. Like that they knew in this film about selective amnesia. Like, so they understood, like, I mean, there's just incredible things, the clips and the knowledge behind the film. Like sometimes you see these films and you go, wow, they put that in there, kind of like Eyes Wide Shut. Like, wow, he knows all the symbolism. He knows these secret parties. He knows the people, you know. And then Manchurian Candidate's like that. It's really well written.
Operationally written, if you could put it in those terms. I mean, it tells you how to do it, basically. I mean,
they show the technique, and they write about it. Condon writes about it in his book. But the techniques. This whole Jay Taney versus McGill case that came out really shows what they were really doing, and the people aren't even aware. The victims aren't aware. because they've been given amnesia or they're drugged. So they don't even know what's happening to them. They just come out a different person. And that's what you see with a lot of these shooters. Somebody says they had a change in personality. Like, he's just a normal guy. Hinckley's the same way. He's like an upstanding, popular, like girls, athletic, and all of a sudden he just whacks out. Look at Luigi Mangione. The guy was like a total winner almost on every aspect of his life. He was the head of his, special high school. He was the top of his class, his private school. He's rich. He's handsome. He worked in AI in the Bay Area for a company, like what everybody would want to do. And then all of a sudden he goes to some kind of weird cult, group that he lived with in Oahu, and he's a changed man. He starts to sympathize with Kaczynski, who's also an MK Ultra victim. He's a victim. There's no question about it. Like, he was under the care of Henry Murray, and they did 3 years of tests on that guy and broke down his character. They might have turned him into an assassin. There's no question. He gave him schizophrenia and whacked him out. The guy was a genius. He had like 185 IQ. I think he was teaching math at Berkeley, like in his 20s, like as a doctor. The guy was super advanced, but they found his weak spot and worked on it. And they literally, it's almost like an old movie about the MK Ultra where you put the helmet on his head and you put all the nodes. They did that to freaking Kaczynski for 3 years and other students. And what's also interesting is that I had this one woman whose mother was targeted by Ewan Cameron, who's close friends with Dulles, by the way. And they were going after the elite. So they were after Kaczynski because of his intelligence. And this one woman, her name is Elizabeth Nixon, they said they went after her mom and all these others to try to like turn them into Stepford wives. And they really messed up her life. The mom had to go through like personal rehab and try to come back from the stuff, because Ewan Cameron was giving ECT, electroconvulsive therapy shots, where people would stop breathing. It literally so much power. It was so immoral that they would literally just stop breathing right there on the table, and people were freaked out. They're just like, whoa, they're almost dead.
Right. And the hospitals are such a perfect place for that, because all you have to do is have some fake credentials and you can get into any wing of the hospital and pretend to be treating these patients and actually be administering drugs. And as long as you're not charting it, how are they going to know? They got other
fake charts. They have fake stuff. They have information that goes out. They're the perfect test subjects because they're unwitting, right? So that was how immoral McGill was and Ewan Cameron. Is these people, a lot of them just had like temporary problems, and they gave them permanent problems. And then they test them. I mean, what's really scary is that they were under the care and oversight of these guys for a long time. So they're watching the changes in them as they're giving them these treatments and keeping notes. So Elizabeth Nixon's mom was under the care of Ewan Cameron for 17 years. Imagine the potency and power of watching this person's personality change as he's changing and giving them LSD and drugs and sleep deprivation and sensory deprivation and curare and other strange drugs and just crazy stuff. It's unbelievable.
Right. And I think that the best form of mind control is ignorance. So everybody else looking in from the outside has no idea that this is going on, and they're all sort of playing into the authority fallacy, thinking, well, this doctor knows best and all the rest of this stuff. And it's all just collapsing in front of them. And as long as they can keep a smile on their face and a handshake in their hand, they can kind of get away with it. People don't have that distrust, and it creates.
They don't trust medicine anymore after COVID, and they shouldn't, because these people are freaking evil. But back then, the doctors were like gods. Like, they had almost like a godlike status, and you just obeyed them. But they were very sinister. Another example, I mean, they had like crazy stuff happen in Georgetown. The CIA financed a new wing of the Georgetown Hospital specifically for mind control research, and they spent like $2 million on it. And they wrote that the documents were found. It's through the Gesichter Fund, this one doctor. And their thing was they were like, we're going to build this, then we're going to get doctors, and those doctors are going to get other doctors. So they had this kind of multi-level marketing outlay. Those doctors are getting other mind control doctors, and then those doctors are going to get patients, and those guys' patients will get more patients. So they knew they were going to grow it out. Like, it's incredible. And then to the public, it was just another part of the hospital. Like, oh, these people are being treated. No,
Right.
they were doing sophisticated stuff. And so it was all being sent up the chain of command all the way to the top, all the way to the heads of the CIA. So they got away with so much stuff. They just baloneyed the public. They bamboozled the proles and the goys or whatever, the cattle. Like, Helms is like, we burned all the MK Ultra doctrine. Well, of course you did, because the research is done. You don't need to do it. MK Ultra is the research arm. That's what people don't understand. It's not the operational arm. It was the 149 different things where they were gathering information and creating stuff and making cults. Like, they were literally making cults. If you read, have you ever heard of the book The Course in Miracles and Williamson, that woman who ran for president?
Right. Yeah.
That's an MK Ultra creation. That is the creation of a cult, of a fake thing. Like, she literally, her husband was part of the MK Ultra sub project. So you think like, oh, MK Ultra never affected me. This woman Williamson is an offshoot of the MK Ultra by promoting A Course in Miracles. And who else promotes A Course in Miracles? Oprah.
Right.
Total
Marianne
MK Ultra.
Williamson. Marianne Williamson. Yeah.
I wonder if over time, I feel like these direct influences and manipulations of individuals have maybe morphed or kind of got more technologically advanced. Of course, with a book or different things, like people could affect masses, right, and control, or propaganda, all these things, information manipulation. But I wonder if maybe this is a speculative question, but I wonder, with all these technological advances, if you might have seen some sort of wireless influence of people without drug manipulation or direct involvement even. I wonder if they've gotten to that point.
I think they've done it. I think the handler has moved into an electronic handler. So you see this, like, if you remember Peyton Gendron, which is also an overlap with O9A, which has kind of intelligence whiffs. It's not overt. But that was the guy who decided one day to get in his car and drive to Buffalo, New York, and kill people. He had an FBI handler, and he was told to kill a cat. So he was being sent up the level of violence. Right. And it's very similar to another case that I studied in the UK, where the guy literally came out of the Tavistock Institute, killed a cat, and then started randomly killing people. It's like they created an assassin. Like, he came out of the Tavistock Institute and then did an SFK killing. And he was a transsexual. His name, I don't even know his real name. They can't even disclose his real name. There's such trash in the UK. I wouldn't even step foot in the UK. But the guy's name, his transsexual name was Scarlett Blake. And they're all connected, and there's like people he's friends with in the US.
Was that dark. From the documentary Don't Fuck with Cats?
Oh my god.
It's like that. It's like
okay.
I saw that shit.
He was kind of like the other, that was Mignotti or whatever his name was. Mignotti, who actually did a snuff film. But yeah. There seems to be a cat thing. So Mignotti elevated through cats to killing people. So did Scarlett Blake, and so did Peyton Gendron, who was a full-on Satan. Like, he was involved in the O9A. Like, there was O9A. And Nikita Kassab, by the way, was the guy who was like part of the O9A who was threatening to kill Trump. So that's another kind of strange guy who underwent a change and was moving around a lot and seemed to have an online handler. He didn't seem to. He had an online handler from somewhere. If you remember, Kassab, he killed his parents. He was like, he talked about himself as a niner. That's a very specific O9A, like odor of nine angles. So the niner is a short of O9A. That's another like crazy murder. So this is like the Black Awakening. This is like Russ Dizdar. So other people have mentioned that, and it's like really true.
Those are really interesting points about how the technological influence can be the handler, if you will, but maybe it still requires some kind of direct manipulation. The one thing that messed my head up with that Buffalo shooting was that one of the victims was an inventor of an engine that was, similar to a few other designs, but essentially, was a water powered engine, and he like invented this process to turn gasoline design into this engine. I know that sounds. You see, I wonder if anyone else might have saw
Ethan,
that.
I heard that. Yeah, Liza, I did. I think we covered it. That's the guy's name. It was Scarlet Blake. Scarlet Blake was the guy's name. He's in jail.
Ethan, the book that we all like to go back to, Dave McGowan's famous book, they talk about how serial killers now have an alibi to take out the target and several other ones, so nobody suspects the target is the intended victim. So a lot of this stuff goes back to that. It's subterfuge and obfuscation using a mass murderer.
Think about the DC sniper, Muhammad, he had this little gay lover boy or whatever, and they went around shooting people, but they had some kind of weird phrase at the end. Do you remember? The duck in a rug or whatever? And they had cards. They had literal cards like Manchurian Candidate. The chief of police was saying that. It's incredible. And the couple people who died were members of the CIA or something, or the Defense Department. So his excuse was he was going to kill his wife and then kill a bunch of random people to cover up the fact he killed his wife. But that's something Muhammad. He was known as the DC sniper.
And there's so many holes in that story as well.
Pardon me?
There's so many holes in that story as well. People saw other snipers and things like that, and they just sort of pinned it on their patsy.
Yeah. There you go, patsy creation. Look up it. One of the key elements of Program to Kill is how many people were in the military, right?
Right.
Oh.
And that guy was in the military. He came out of the military. So did Oswald. Oswald was a Marine. That's basically a subpart of naval intelligence, right? Who's the famous guy in Program to Kill that said, we're naval intelligence, we're training assassins and putting them all around the world? The guy's name is Narut, Narut. And it's literally in Program to Kill. And that story got spiked faster than anything. Much like the Boltner story, the guy who wore a mask to kill the 2 people in Minnesota, right? That was spiked. He said he worked for the military and that he had credentials that showed he worked overseas. He's been in 8 countries working. And he said all kinds of stuff like, Waltz made me go kill these people. And that's gone, baby. Gone, baby, gone. So that ties into Narut and McGowan, who was just so far ahead of his time, man. He had it so much keyed out, and that book it's way ahead of its time because this stuff is still happening. And he mentions Estabrooks right at the beginning, and it just showed how he was able to key into really important salient facts and kind of get rid of the chaff. McGowan is a freaking giant.
Well, naval intelligence is so central to all of this stuff. Everybody focuses on the CIA or FBI or these other agencies, but naval intelligence is the original intelligence agency for the country. If anything's going through anybody, it's going to be going through them first.
They know psychological warfare, so they always successfully avoid getting tagged. That's part of the gift, right? It's it's not us, it's the CIA. But there's all kinds of military guys around the death of JFK too. LeMay, Willoughby, Lansdale, but they always want people to blame the CIA. I think that's how clever they are, Lansdale, famously there's a picture supposedly of him in the JFK movie by Oliver Stone, right? There's Lansdale, and people have said that looks like him, looks exactly like him from the back. And but
they showed that on the show actually a long time ago.
Oh, maybe it
did. Yeah. You brought that on, yeah. Interesting. That guy's
he's a very important character. Also, he went from he was a psychological warfare expert doing some really dirty stuff in Philippines. Then he ends up in
who's the Aquino
Vietnam, and then he ends up in Dallas in November '63. They all came out for the big kill. I think that this was a big moment for him. We're gonna finally get this bastard right here.
So would you say that MK Ultra was more of a solidification of a process that was going on way before that time and more institutionalizing it, taking it out of the private arena and institutionalizing it into a formal format? Basically, that's what then infects the rest of the media and all the rest of the cultures, is through that initial jump off from, private operators, the local hypnotist, to now the government hypnotist.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the time, if you remember the 50s, really was kind of the apex of American, era. It's really Pax Americana, where everybody else is exhausted from war, but the U.S. is untouched. And they have tons of money, and we're now the big financial people. And so the outgrowth of MK Ultra takes place in that environment where these huge, like IBM comes to the top, this kind of like the technology of the time, Watson, and we can systematize everything, and this is the golden age of psychiatry. So all this stuff, they have the money and wealth, and they have the intent to, like, these are sophisticated, well-educated people, Yaleys and Princeton and secret societies and stuff like that. And I think that they decided at the very top they were going to get the best minds and try to really figure out what they could do and see if they could get results. And so MK Ultra is really just a massive research project. And I think they were happy with the results. They got tons of results, and they found they refined the techniques, and I think that they did it. So I think that the information was out there. Esther Brooks was starting in the 30s. There was a lot of guys in the Nazi camps who were doing this stuff. They were doing hypnosis and giving people drugs and trying to find, even like, if you want to go on a bad trip, go look at this guy van der Lubbe, who was the supposed burning. I mean, the Reichstag fire was a huge event in Germany, right? It'd be the equivalent of burning down our Capitol building. And the guy that they blamed on it, they blamed it on the communists, right? Just like Oswald, right? So he's a commie. That's why he killed Kennedy. So van der Lubbe, but if you look at van der Lubbe, people are like, something's wrong with this guy. He doesn't lift his eyes up. He's staring at the ground. He's not fighting. And a lot of these guys, like, if you look at the shooters, they're confused. Even Oswald was confused. He's like, what the hell's going on? And even Chapman, some of these other guys, or Ruth, like, he's smiling. He's in the cop car laughing, like, hey, like, they don't even comprehend the seriousness of what's going on. When the Ruth got caught, if you remember, that was in Mar-a-Lago, right? So van der Lubbe, they think, was tampered with, and this is the early 30s. So when you say MK Ultra systematized, that's what it was. It was systematized. This is what Dulles is a key figure, and this is what he said when he wrote his brain warfare speech in 53, April 10th, 53. Quote, "The target of this brain warfare is the minds of men, both on a collective and on an individual basis." So we're thinking, the public's thinking, oh, they're just tankering with people. No. They are thinking on a collective, like, societal basis. And that's what Dulles is thinking about. Its aim is to conditioning the mind so that it no longer reacts on a free will or rational basis, but responds to impulses implanted from the outside. These are just pregnant with meaning.
That's memes today.
Yeah, so irrationality, conditioned responses. Look at all the conditioned responses these people have. They almost don't even think. If you run into, like, what people call normies or TV watchers, they don't even have critical thinking skills, man. It's not a joke. I run into them all the time. I don't say anything, but they've literally been programmed from the outside. They've had implanted thoughts from the outside. So that's why Manchurian Candidate's so important in understanding all this stuff.
Something I want to ask you, William, when it comes to, like, MK Ultra, I'll try to word it this way. When it comes, with the United States, I think if you kind of, like, look at, like, around World War II, you'll see that, like, we'll take Nazi doctors that did, like, crazy experiments, and we'll take Japanese doctors from, I forgot that unit or that
738. I think it's unit 738.
Yeah. We'll take their doctors that did, like, weird, wild, weird shit to people too. It seems like, we'll take them over, and I sometimes wonder, do we do that and we take everybody's, like, data that they had and then we implement something here? I've often wondered, did we do that with MK Ultra? Like, was Russia and Germany, their prior work in that field, did we somehow kind of get that or use that here.
Yes, I think so. I think they were trying to get it. This is a good book. I just showed it. Tripped. Nazi Germany, the CIA, and the Dawn of the Psychedelic Age. So a lot of the LSD stuff came out of Germany. Hoffman, Sandoz, and then was brought over, and they realized it was super powerful. So that's one example. But I think that they were always looking at people like, in Russia, trying to get their stuff, and they're analyzing the communist bloc at that time. And they thought that there was a guy named Mind Zenci. It's hard to pronounce. He's Hungarian, but he was on TV, and they thought he was acting strange, just like Vanderloop. Like he was having like conditioned responses and stuff. So that set off all the national security guys. That's just one example. So they were definitely interested in the Russians. And Pavlov had done all this conditioned response stuff. And I think they were trying to automate the human brain. Like, these are really hardcore power people. They're into power. And they were immoral. And Dulles is not a Christian. He was from a Christian family. But he believed that like a technocratic elite should run everything. And he would be the technocrat, right? The super smart technocrat. And that's kind of what the CIA really was. It was like a fourth estate in the U.S. that took over the other three branches of government, even to this day. And I mean, probably all the way up until recently, it had superpower. Like, I think Trump, he was smart. He didn't destroy the CIA. He didn't threaten the CIA like JFK. I'm going to splinter it into 1,000 pieces. He just put some guy from Texas, like a mid-level, low-level attorney, in the job. So he didn't have, like, that's how a lot of politicians protect themselves. They usually their vice president's an idiot or something. You put in like a total moron, like Kamala Harris, or who did Bush have? It was that one guy from Indiana who couldn't spell potato. So that's what they did. So they don't break these entities apart. They just make sure that they're hamstrung by stupidity. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that MK Ultra is really. Pardon?
Did you have slides you were going to show it? No.
Yeah, they're right here.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the poster for it. Crooks, mystery, Ruth. See him smiling. He got busted. He's going to kill the president. Look at his face. Why isn't he nervous? He's going to jail for the rest of his life. I'd be really concerned. Not a care in the world, man. Just kind of walking around weird. Mangione. A lot like McVeigh. Walk out like McVeigh, right? McVeigh said he was implanted. Chapman. This whole story is a crazy story. This is the Aurora movie shooter. I forgot his name. Hinckley, Livelsberger, Jabbar. This is the cover of the Manchurian Candidate. That's what Richard Condon looked like. If you've seen Prizzi's Honor, he also wrote that book, so that's in the movie. This is an interesting book cover. Manchurian Candidate with the shattered kind of motif. This is kind of like how they depict shattered minds too. So I think that that's important. They talk about hypnosis. He talks about hypnosis. This is the intro by Condon, 1991. Oh, one of the interesting points is that the Angela Lansbury character, Eleanor, is based on Roy Cohn, who is Donald Trump's kind of like mentor, right? So it's kind of ties into the present day. And Roy Cohn was behind the McCarthy stuff. He was a blackmailer and really dark guy. This is Condon. There was a popular notion, undoubtedly self-protective, that no one could be persuaded under hypnosis to do anything which was inherently abhorrent to him. Reams of research prove this to be untrue. That's what Manchuria looks like. So that's kind of like above Korea. Korea was bombed to smithereens, by the way, in 1953. There was like no building standing. It was like Gaza of its era. Sinatra was in a movie in 1954 called Suddenly, where he gets into a building and gets a rifle and shoots the president and then to drive by. He's driving by in an auto parade. You can't even write this stuff. So check out Suddenly. But these are Sinatra and JFK together, both close personal friends. Central motif of the Manchurian Candidate is this. This is the triggering effect. It's the Queen of Diamonds. And the reason that the hypnotist used it is because the main character, Raymond Shaw, had a very cantankerous relationship with his mother. And in the book, the mother puts him under a hypnotic spell and has sex with him. So like it's a reverse sex slave. The man is the boy is the sex slave. Yeah.
You know what I was gonna say is the Queen being shown over and over again kept making me think about like kind of like the female handler or like a Scarlet Whore type of situation. And then you just said that, so I do wonder about that symbolism.
She's certainly not the Queen of Hearts.
Or she would like kind of manipulate the prince. Maybe.
This is his first dream, 311. I think I showed that. There's 11 guys here. This is Yen Lo. He says some pretty interesting stuff. He's like the avatar for all of the mind control researchers. So they have him. He works at the Pavlov Institute. It's pretty incredible stuff. I can probably show some videos too, but like here's they see them. They're at a party for a bunch of horticulturalists, but this woman has a bayonet. You know, it's kind of funny. The way they edited it is really good. But Raymond Shaw then strangles this guy, and Sinatra wakes up screaming, and they have post-hypnotic suggestion. So nobody likes Raymond Shaw, but when asked, Sinatra's character Marco says, "Raymond Shaw is the kindest, bravest, warmest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life," which is patently untrue. They're kind of shooting you here. They point the gun right at the audience. This guy relates it, the African-American guy in the movie. This is interesting. So the key phrase, Raymond, why don't you pass time by playing solitaire? When they did the artichoke things, they actually found that they could induce people into a hypnotic state through the phone in the 50s. So they knew that in the early 50s. So they were finding out a lot of this information. He's in a hospital again. That's where he's reprogrammed by Yen Lo. And there he is right there. He ends up in the U.S. So his handler comes from Manchuria to New York City to handle Raymond Shaw. There's an example of neuro-linguistic programming in this movie, which is Eleanor's kind of not very bright husband. Can't remember how many communists there are. So she has him like shaking Heinz, and she says 57, so he'll remember it. So she implants in his brain the memory of the 57 by attaching it to the Heinz tomato ketchup bottle. It's pretty interesting. They did a play. There's also a common theme in these, and it's common kind of with the Hinckley and Chapman, is this morphing of characters. So the stepfather of Raymond Shaw, they're always kind of morphing him into Lincoln, who then gets assassinated. And that's the foreshadowing to the end of this movie, is he gets shot by Raymond. Gets assassinated. This is when Sinatra realizes these two people are in his dream, and they're both assets, like intel assets in the Soviet Union. The Queen, he goes and jumps in the lake in Central Park. This is the military psychiatrist who realizes that the solitaire game serves as some kind of trigger mechanism. So, and there's because of their symbolic identification with human beings. This is where she says 11 minutes on each side of my steak. She's the queen, right? So now she's dressed as the queen. So she's the Queen of Diamonds. She's the living embodiment. And there's the bust of Lincoln again. She's got her son under hypnotism. She's his new handler. And then Marco Sinatra breaks his conditioning with like a loaded deck of all Queen of Diamonds, and then instructs him and stuff. He misses out. Shaw gets away, kills his paramour, his girlfriend, over a checkerboard kitchen tile floor. And then she programs him, and this is where she kisses him. In the book, they do the deed. One of the interesting things is he dresses up as a priest at the end to commit the crime. So it's also interesting because Ferry could dress up in priest outfits. He's handling Oswald, and also the guy who was the hypnotic kind of person involved in this, a guy by the name of William Joseph Bryan Jr. Have you ever heard of William Joseph Bryan Jr.?
No.
friend of like weird things. He's friends of Sinatra. He's friends of Melvin Belli, who would go on to represent Jack Ruby, and also friends with Bailey, who was also another attorney, well-known attorney, who worked on the OJ case. But yeah, those are basically my slides. We can watch some videos of this. Let's see, those are the 11s. Also, the movies that came out at the 7 times. So after Frankenheimer directed Manchurian Candidate, the next movie was 7 Days in May, which is about a military takeover of the United States. And JFK kind of let this one, kind of approved this. And this this was released in 1964 in January, right after the assassination. But JFK allowed Frankenheimer to use he actually took a weekend in Hyannisport and let them film on the White House. So they're literally filming at the White House. So I think JFK wanted to put this into the zeitgeist. I think it's intentional. Also big names: Ava Gardner, Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster. And then Strangelove came out January 1964 as well. Weird time.
That other movie seems really reminiscent of the business plot that was talked about by Smedley Butler in front of Congress. It's got that sort of feel to it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because those guys were all kind of in a nexus. Bush, it was Prescott Bush, Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles worked for like what they called a white shoe law firm, Sullivan and Cromwell, which was basically just a front for the Rockefellers and all business interests. But Dulles was a real lawyer ball. Like, he was amazing, super smart. I don't think he's a good person, but he was involved with all that stuff, that whole thing. Smedley Butler, war's a racket. It really is incredible when you think about it, who these guys were, what they were involved, what they were doing. And then there's Sirhan. He almost like an Oswald figure. 1968. One of the interesting things about Frankenheimer is that Frankenheimer directed those 2 movies, and then in 68, RFK, the brother of JFK, is running for president, comes to California. Where does he stay before he's killed? He stays at the Frankenheimer residence. And Frankenheimer, the director of the Manchurian Candidate, drove RFK to his fate, to the Ambassador Hotel. And so he was at the Ambassador when Sirhan was there, and according to a researcher, Sirhan brushed by Frankenheimer and at the night. So he like literally wrote a book about programmed assassins. And then this guy who's just, there's another show, I've done shows on this guy, but this guy's been tampered with. There's no question about it. He would write RFK must die, like hypno program stuff. RFK must die, RFK must die. He wrote about the Illuminati. He had Radio Man. There's just all kind of, just off the charts. He was in and out of the hospital from 66 to 67. He would write practice, 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 mind control, mind control, mind control. That's what he would write, like automatic writing. This is like a follow-up paper. But RFK Must Die. There's a bunch of books on this stuff. RFK Must Die, that's by Kaiser. And then Assassination of Robert Kennedy, Tim Tate. I've talked to him. And then Lisa Peace's book. I recommend all these books. But what's also interesting is that also in LA, at the time that Sirhan is there, guess who else is in LA? James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray is filtering through LA. He's hanging out with like hypnotists. He's hanging out with alternate figures, much like Sirhan. And then all of a sudden he's in Memphis. And there he is, like, supposedly he's the one who he's dead now. He took the blame for killing Martin Luther King, which I don't think is correct. And we can go into mind control. Just Percy, all these guys. People are still saying that Oswald acted alone. This is an interesting picture because when they dragged out Mangione, he's dressed like Oswald. It's incredible. It's almost like they were playing around with motifs. I don't even know what's going on.
Even the guys next to him.
Yeah. I believe they took out Oswald to his death. Like they knew they were bringing him out at the right time for that shooting to commence. Like it's
Is
not.
was Manchurian in federal custody?
I think he's at the same. I think he's at the same jail that they put Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in.
Oh, I was going to say those shoes are federal issue shoes. Yeah, those are federal prison shoes he's wearing.
Do you want to watch a few clips of the Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah.
You have to bring it up. You have to bring up the video.
Oh shit, my bad. I thought it was on there for some reason.
The war in Korea was over. Captain, now Major Bennett Marco, had been reassigned to Army intelligence in Washington. It was by and large a pleasant assignment, except for one thing. Night after night, the Major was plagued by the same reoccurring nightmare.
Stop.
Another modern discovery, which we owe to the hydrangea, concerns the influence of air drainage upon plant climate. Many years ago, when I was traveling about the country, I noticed magnificent hydrangeas on the hills, where the air drainage was perfect, and very poor specimens, or perhaps none at all, in the valleys. Formerly, we used to consider sheltered valleys more favorable to plants than hilltops. But the avoidance of late spring and early autumn frost enjoyed by sites with good air drainage, where the cold air can drain safely away to lower levels, gives the hills a decided advantage. Thus, it was the hydrangeas that gave the first pointer in another modern discovery of horticultural importance. From this, it might appear that the hydrangea is a fairly simple plant, but there are more complications. The cultivation of hydrangeas was evolved from a number of varieties originally found in Japan, not all of which, of course, have the same characteristics. Two of them do not share the quality of producing blue flowers in mineral-rich soils.
Allow me to introduce our American visitors. I must ask you to forgive their somewhat lackadaisical manners, but I have conditioned them, or brainwashed them, which I understand is the new American word, to believe that they are waiting out a storm in the lobby of a small hotel in New Jersey, where a meeting of the Ladies' Garden Club is in progress.
You will notice that I have told them they may smoke. I've allowed my people to have a little fun in the selection of bizarre tobacco substitutes. Are you enjoying your cigarette, Ed?
Yes, ma'am. Yak dung. Oh, tastes good, like a cigarette should. Now then, comrades.
May I present the famous Raymond Shaw?
Young man, you've flown 8,000 miles to this dreary spot in Manchuria to see.
He's literally like handled from the U.S. to go there for conditioning. That's the whole thing, is he's sent there. It's not by accident. And then he's sent back to the United States, like Oswald, who was in a hospital in Minsk. Like, Oswald's in and out of the hospital a lot. It's incredible.
Raymond, pull your chair over here by me, please. I am sure you've all heard the old wives' tale that no hypnotized subject may be forced to do that which is repellent to his moral nature, whatever that may be. Nonsense, of course.
So the whole thing that they tell people is you can't do things against your moral nature. It's nonsense, much like what Condon wrote in his intro to Manchurian Candidate.
Oh, you note-takers might set down a reminder to consult Brenman's paper Experiments in the hypnotic production of antisocial and self-injurious behavior. Or Wells' 1941 paper, which was titled, I believe, Experiments in the Hypnotic Production of Crime.
Or, of course, Andrew Salter's remarkable book, Conditioned Reflex Therapy, to name only 3. Or if it offends you that only the West is working to manufacture more crime and better criminals.
Against the modern shortage,
Whoa.
I suggest Krasnogorski's Primary Violence Motivation, or Sirov's The Unilateral...
So he's reflecting all this research that's taking place in the 50s on this, academic research. Motivational violence, conditioned reflexes, hypnotic production of crime. If you remember, Manson is a hypnotist. He's actually hypnotizing his people. They don't really know that, but he hypnotized that famous kind of Latino actor. Have you ever seen that clip? Anybody? No,
I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can find it.
Suggestion to self-destruction.
My dear Jan, as you grow older, you grow more long-winded. And to get to the point, has the man ever killed anyone? Or has he not?
I apologize, my dear Dmitri. I keep forgetting that you're a young country and your attention span is limited. Tell me, Raymond, have you ever killed anyone?
No, ma'am.
Not even in combat?
In combat? Yes, ma'am, I think so.
Of course you have, Raymond. Raymond has been a crack shot since childhood.
Marvelous outlet for his aggressions. May I have the bayonet, please?
Not with the knife, with the hands.
With the hands?
Here, have him use this. Ah, da.
Raymond, whom do you dislike the least in your group here today?
The least?
That's right.
Well, I guess Captain Marco, ma'am.
You notice how he is always drawn to authority? That won't do, Raymond. We need the captain to get you your medal. Whom else?
Well, I guess Ed Mavoli, ma'am.
Ah, that's better. Now then, Raymond, take this scarf and strangle Ed Mavoli to death.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon.
Hey, Sarge, cut it up. What? Quiet, Ed, please. Now you just sit there quietly and cooperate.
Yes, ma'am.
Major, to your knowledge...
Let me see if I can bring up this. This is good. I don't want you to get a strike for like ripping off all that stuff.
Yeah, like, saying damn over and over again. Did they say
what's
damn?
that?
They say
yeah, they man because in their minds they think that Dr. Yen Lo is a woman, so they keep calling him ma'am. That's the whole thing. Funny. They're under. They're zapped.
It's so funny the parallels between that and the screen memories when it comes to alien abductees is like they're seeing the whole world as one thing, and then once they kind of see behind it, it's like everything that they're being presented as this sort of a screen memory is just false. It's just to make them at ease so that they're not freaking out at being in whatever environment that they're actually in.
Right. Why isn't that working? I don't know why that's not showing up.
What are we trying to pull up?
I'm trying to pull up this other video here.
Oh, there it is. My bad.
Hold on. Well,
Charles Manson in prison, didn't you? What was that story? Can you tell us that?
County jail. In the county jail. But let me tell you, Charlie wasn't the guy that you saw on the TV specials. All right. He was oh God, he was like 5'4", 5'5", little scrawny. He was poor, kind of like a bum. Really, he had a string for a belt. He tied his pants with a string because he couldn't afford a belt. And everybody else, we dressed, cool, ironed our pants, and so some of the prisoners were going to take advantage of him because they take advantage of anybody that's small. And we found out that he could hypnotize you, so we let him sleep in front of our cell to make sure that nobody would hurt him. And he got us loaded on weed, and 3 of the guys in the cell. Everybody else had like 6 guys in their cell. We only had 3 because we were special. I had 2 killers with me, and then he got us loaded on weed, and I said, "Well, get us loaded on heroin." So the 3 of us tried to get loaded. He got 2 of us loaded on heroin. One guy just woke up, and afterwards I asked him, how come he couldn't do him? And he asked, "Did you ever get loaded on heroin?" He goes, "No." Well, your mind doesn't know how to work. Do you understand? Your mind doesn't know how to react. So if I tell you to do something while you're hypnotized and you haven't done it before, or you don't know how to do it, you'll just wake up. And that's what kept happening.
Yeah, so you're saying that he got you guys loaded up on heroin or weed, but there was no heroin or weed in the room, right? He was doing this purely through hypnosis.
People know when I get loaded on heroin, my eyes, I get red under my eyes. And it's like literally the first thing, blah, you throw up, you dump. And I mean, me and Chato, it's like we both got blah. He dumped in the sink, I dumped in the toilet, and looked, hey, what you doing? And whoa, everybody was like shocked. And this Johnny Ronnie Cruz, he was like, well, what happened? He never got loaded. And boy, I was sorry when they transferred Charlie out.
You've basically got unlimited access to anything that you want because he can just keep on hypnotizing you back into it. What was he in for? Do you know why he was there?
Yeah, I have no idea. He was nothing of any, because he was a petty thief. He wasn't. You know what? And not to speak ill of the dead, but Charlie couldn't have done that any place, any time, but right there. And my friend George Perry knew him in Frisco, knew him in Oakland. Okay, and he was a scrawny little hippie, and the girls that he got, Linda Kasabian, all of them were broken. All of them. They were up in Oakland and San Francisco being ripped off by the pimps and raped by the pimps. And so he came around with a big bus and some acid and said, let me lead you. So it was kind of like they looked at him like, yeah, he's the Messiah,
They were already vulnerable. They were already primed for somebody like him to come in and save them.
They were so broken, and so needed somebody to take care of them.
In the same way that you could have done with a bit of extra heroin or weed in prison.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoy,
he tells that story multiple times, but see how Charlie could emulate drugs in somebody through hypnotism, and then the same thing's happening is reflected in the Manchurian Candidate, where Yen Lo is making them smoke yak shit, thinking it's cigarettes. That's the power of it. Charlie knew that stuff. He was an accomplished hypnotist, and he hypnotized those girls probably too.
What I think was really interesting is the fact that you can't do something to a person that hasn't felt it before, seen it before. So the idea in this movie, The Manchurian Candidate, of them taking all these killers in to teach them how to be trained to kill is, really obvious. It's eye-opening. What they're doing is they're taking people who have the experience to do this stuff, and they're reprogramming their wants and needs based off of what they've seen before.
Much like what Charlie's technique with the girls is reflected in the Manchurian Candidate, where they use the Queen of Diamonds because of Raymond's attachment to his mother, and Charlie would get them to get quiet, and say, I'm now your daddy. He would step into the father role. So he would morph into the father role for these girls. And that's why they were so attached to him. And if you look at them after the arrests and stuff like that, they're acting like cult members or people involved in post-hypnotic involvement. He or somebody, he I don't know, he supposedly had a handler. He supposedly had some, he was associated, no question, with the Process Church, but I think maybe one of the guys at the Haight-Ashbury clinic may have been handling Charlie or influencing him. But he was a high-level Scientologist, which makes a lot of sense. And that's probably where he learned hypnotism.
Thank you. I'll take this down. Is there anything else you wanted to add, William?
I could do 30 hours, but I think I'm kind of spent. I've been talking all day.
Yeah. Well, plus, you know,
I think this movie should be watched. It's really advanced, and it ties into so many deaths. I mean, I could bring up my Oswald stuff, but I think we've covered enough.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did anybody have any questions or anything they wanted to add? Now is your time. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Headless. You got something?
Well, I was going to say, you don't see very many hypnosis entertainers going on to military bases to do, the entertainment for those soldiers. But we can kind of see why that is. I mean, you would have a lot better shot of taking a bunch of soldiers, getting them hypnotized, and having them go out into the streets and kill people, as opposed to just regular, ordinary people who have never seen that kind of combat before. And it brings up the Fort Bragg shooters, which we really didn't get into, the Fort Bragg, because, I mean, Fort Bragg has always been known as the home for special operations and insane killers and drug smuggling. So you've got all the elements right there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, this is kind of a core thing, I think, at the late 50s, early 60s, and then it just spread out through the culture, through current events, through assassins, through people getting tampered with. Up until the current date, there's high technology. They can do voice to skull. They can do all kinds of pretty crazy stuff, radio stuff. The challenge of hypnotism, and even I think Trejo kind of brought it across, is certain people can be hypnotized and others can't. So they have to find the right subject. When they found Sirhan, they found a great subject. But not everybody, and some people say that you can be turned into a hypnotizable subject, but I'd rather not go into that. Stay away. If you don't trust your doctor, man, do not go to that doctor. And some of these things are still around. Like, I was doing research on the experiments at Menlo Park, and one of these kind of NGO kind of new age psychological centers, I don't want to say it, but that was around there in the 60s, involved in LSD research and hypnotism, still has an office in Menlo Park. So, like, you don't know what these people are going to get exposed to. They don't know. They may think they're just going to get counseling, like you and Cameron's victims. They're going to just get some, maybe get some pills. And that bringing up the SSRIs is a whole nother story. Like, you don't know what they're tampering with or what they really know about the SSRIs, because you're kind of in a fugue state. And there's definitely a correlation between those drugs and assassins and stuff. Most of those guys are on. They're not antidepressants. It's a misnomer. It's like safe and effective. They really don't make you. It's not like euphoria. It puts you into kind of a numb state. It's almost like you're dissociated. So you won't be depressed because you're not feeling anything. So I would stay. I wouldn't even take an SSRI. You couldn't pay me any money to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, real quick, I'll let everybody mention this stuff again before we wrap this up. Brooke, let everybody know where they can find your stuff, and remind everybody where you're going to be speaking at. I think you forgot that at the beginning. Awesome.
Oh, I did. Thank you. And thank you, William. This was fascinating. I've never seen that interview on Manson and just found that really incredible. You can find me. I'll be speaking at Charlie's Beyond Belief Expo in Fort Myers, Florida on October 18th. And the Occult Rejects will also be there. It's going to be a really fun event. So please come out. And you can find me on Instagram at Dark Florida Podcast and wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Headless Giant, sir.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, William. This has been a great episode. I think more people really need to start digging into this stuff, because if ignorance is the number one method of mind control, the only cure is knowledge. So we got to get to that point where people can start to understand and identify these triggers, which are going on all around them, especially in the electronic world. You know, your news feed might be geared specifically for you, and you have to be able to sort of detach yourself from what you're seeing on your phones, just so that you could have some perspective in your own life. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. And if you have any occult paranormal stories, send them to me at the Headless Giant Podcast at gmail.com, and we will read them. And if you include your address, Nick, my co-host, will send you some stickers. So definitely check that out. Thursday night, Sunday mornings with me and Ethan on the Trialogues, and Ricardo too. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And Ethan Indigo, please let everybody know what's up with you.
Well, that was awesome. Headless and the whole what you just said in the whole podcast makes me think of what Buddha said. The mind is the slayer of the real, and so sometimes like we fool ourselves, and we get fooled by things. So stay grounded, right? But yeah, I'm on all the usual social media and easy to find. And thanks everyone. Thanks, William.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And Tyrone. Sure.
Thank you. That was actually awesome. I'm going to go watch that movie now, because I was getting into it, but I know with the copyright, we couldn't watch it all. So I'm actually going to go back and watch that tonight. Go back and see what stuff I can find and research and stuff like that. So I do appreciate that. Everything that you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. Go grab your copy of my book, Journey Through the Origins of History. It went bestseller on Amazon. So grab it. Thanks. I appreciate it, Nick.
Of course. And William, let everybody know again one more time. What's up?
Nick, thanks again for having me on. Really appreciate it. Glad to be with you and your audience and your fellow hosts. And William Ramsey Investigates, you can find at Spotify, Spreaker. I have tons of interviews, and thanks to this new court case, I recommend people who are interested in mind control, they listen to it, because I read the whole court case. It's Taney versus McGill University and the Victoria Hospital. Very important as a historical record, so people check that out. This is the real stuff. It's not kind of speculation or anything like that. And then I have 5 books, and I have 5 documentaries on my Patreon too. And great to be with you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. No, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I always love having you on. You always bring great slides and stuff. Thank you, everybody in the chat. That's what's up. I appreciate everybody being here. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well.